Okay, welcome to another Expats Portugal video, where it's our mission to help you successfully find all the information you need about moving to or settling in Portugal. If you're watching us for the first time, ensure you press the subscribe button and the bell so you will be alerted every time we put up something new. Plus, feel free to comment and ask questions in the chat, and we will endeavor to get back to you. If you'd like to be part of our live audience on these webinars, please join us as a member via our website at expatsportugal.com. Now, tonight we will be discussing Portugal's new digital nomad visa with our long-term partners, EI Migration Agency. The first migration agency in Portugal. EI was founded by Gilda Pereira, and the company has a 98% success rate in securing visas for their clients, including many of our Expats Portugal members. We choose to work with EI as our exclusive partner in this area because of their up-to-the-minute knowledge and expertise, and the service levels which are second to none. And talking of expertise, our guests from EI tonight are Christina and Carolina, who are here to guide and answer your questions about digital nomad visas. Thank you. Without further ado, I'll hand over to our host, Carl, who'll welcome Christina and Carolina in more detail.
I will. Thank you very much, Jerry. Thanks everyone for being here tonight. Excited to tell you about Portugal's new digital nomad visa for 2023. And let's say hello to a few people who are here with us tonight. Quite a few Texans. Missouri also represented, Nevada, and Cranley. Would that be in Surrey? As well, Lincolnshire in the UK, Cascais, of course. Good evening to you, and thank you everybody for being here, and keep those messages coming, telling us where you are in the world. And of course, that's the right place to put your questions that I can put to Christina and Carolina. So let's welcome them now. Christina, welcome to you. Lovely to see you again. How are you?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I should have said to the way. Okay, you're back. You're back. Yeah. I know for a fact that some people who are in our audience tonight are already here, and they may not actually need a digital nomad visa. They may be here to tell their friends about it, of course, but I think some of them are here to see you, Christina, as well, because they love working with you. So great to see you here, Christina Amaral from EI, and Carolina, who we've not met before. Carolina Cunha, how are you this evening?
Hi, I'm great. Nice to meet you all.
Good to see you as well. Thank you very much, both of you, live in Lisbon this evening at the EI offices. Let's find a little bit more about you both. Christina, of course, some people do know you, but could you tell people who don't know you and refresh the memories of those who are glad to see you on the screen of what it is you do at EI?
Well, thank you. Well, in the very beginning, oh no, this is going to be a very long story. Okay, so I work
EI, not your whole life story, just EI, please. Okay.
It all began with so I've been working here since 2017, and pretty much my area of expertise has always been the D7 visa, very popular amongst a lot of people, and so I've become quite of an expert on that subject. And now, well, we are on our way to become experts on the digital nomad visa. I say experts and becoming experts because, well, as you may well know, it's very fresh. So we are still to see how things are going to be handled on this side in Portugal by the SCF, if there is still an SCF by that time, but that's another story.
Which we'll talk about tonight, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah.
We'll reassure people. Yes, CEF has gone through a number of reorganizations and disbandings and reorganizations. So we're hoping by spring of this year, they will be in fine shape to manage all of the visa processes coming into Portugal. And as you say, yeah, 200, I think, so far of the digital nomad visas have been approved in Portugal. So it really is early days. Your life story, actually, just for a moment on the life story and the background. Where are you from in Portugal?
Me?
Yeah, you're Lisbon.
Well, born and raised in Southside Lisbon, now more currently known as Lisbon South Bay.
Oh, really? Is that what it's known as? Okay, from the Lisbon South Bay, Christina, everybody. And you would be called a Lisboeta or an Alfacina, right? The lettuce eaters of Lisbon.
Well, technically, I was born in Lisbon, but so that makes me an Alfacina. Yeah. But I never lived in Lisbon. I only work in Lisbon.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you very much. Carolina, which part of Portugal are you from? And could you give us an introduction to yourself and what you do at EI, please?
Yes, of course. So I am also truly Alfacinha. I was born and raised in Lisbon. And I started working in another types of visa. I worked in D2 and D3, some D1s. And recently I made the change to work with Christina. It has been very, very great environment. I'm loving it. And I'm learning the digital nomads as long as the law was issued. So I asked everyone else as well. And it has been a fine trip.
Excellent. So good to have you here tonight. And really good to hear that you're between you covering a lot of the Ds there, the D1, D2, D7 digital nomad visa tonight, so we can give people some good context and background if there are other questions about some of the other visas for coming to Portugal. But of course, it is the digital nomad visa special tonight. So perhaps I think we return to you, Christina, why this is so important for Portugal, and maybe you could sort of transition into the what's required, the basic requirements, and tell us all about this exciting new visa.
Okay, well, first of all, I think that the new digital nomad visa, and I'll keep on calling it new digital nomad visa for a long time. It came in to just try and separate the waters between what is active income and passive income, because there were a lot of people that had active income applying for a D7 visa, which was mainly, or its purpose was to help people with passive income to come to Portugal. So passive income such as rents, dividends, interests, pensions, things that you don't need to work to get. And then active income, people that are still working. It came and created that separation between those two types of visa and created new requirements for each of these new types of visas. The requirements for the D7 do remain the same, but now only people with passive income can apply for that D7 visa. So one of the main requirements and the major difference between the two of them, I would say, is the income requirement. For the D7 visa, it is still the minimum wage in Portugal. So you only need to show 760 euros coming in regularly every month. But with the new digital nomad visa, you need to show an income monthly that it is at least 3,040 euros. So 4 times our minimum wage.
Well, that's the big difference, isn't it, between the D7 and the digital nomad visa?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is one of the major differences between those two. And in many of the consultations that we have had with people, they all say, okay, but that's insane. How is that difference so high? Mm-hmm. And I think that this really needs to be addressed. I think that the difference there comes from the simple fact that for the D7 visa, if you are using passive income, it means that in a way it will linger on. So if it is a pension, you'll get it for the rest of your life. Yeah. If it is rent, it means you have a property and you can always have a revenue from that. If it is dividends, it means that you have investments or a company that is generating income. So it doesn't really depend on you having a job or not. Now, if you are working, you can lose your job from one day to the other.
Yes.
Although one might think, okay, no, I belong to the board of the company or something. Companies can be bought and sold, and you can lose your job anyway. So I think that to prevent a situation where one would need assistance in country, okay, then these people can apply, but then they need more money to sustain themselves, especially because our government clearly knows that 760 euros is not enough to live in Portugal every month.
Yes, we'll park that for the time being. We might return to that later in the politics of that, but we're talking about the digital nomad visa tonight. And so that's the first and big distinction between the two, which would lead us on then to savings, wouldn't it? Because I guess that would be connected as well with you have to show some savings, do you not, with the D7? How is that the same the case with the digital nomad visa as well?
Sorry,
do you have to show savings for the digital nomad visa?
No, not really.
So it's all about the income. We could put it that way, couldn't we?
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. And what are the other requirements? What are people up against? That's the main one, and of course the reflection of the change in the Portuguese minimum national wage or national minimum wage is reflected there. What else are people? What else will people be facing? Let's look at the accommodation part of it, which is always an interesting challenge.
Definitely,
and increasingly so by the day, you might say as well.
Yeah, definitely. That is a very good question because, well, technically, with the new digital nomad visa, you should only need to present a 4-month rental agreement. So a temporary rental agreement will do. Don't use Airbnb though. We heard stories of people, not our clients, thank God, but our clients overheard someone having problem presenting Airbnb accommodation to apply for a visa. So let's avoid that. But something like a short-term rental with something that you find in Idealista that they are just renting short-term, you can use that for 4 months. Obviously, our recommendation is always try and get a 1-year rental agreement. This is a residency visa, and we do feel like any day now they will change this requirement to a 1-year rental agreement, just like they did in the past with the D7 visa. So today they are accepting a 4-month rental agreement, but tomorrow they might not.
So that would be your advice then. Whilst that is the law at the moment, it may be better to go for a whole 12-month.
To play it on the safe side, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, and for extra safety, are we talking about a rental agreement that's registered with Finanzas? Because that brings a kind of gold seal, doesn't it?
Yeah, but shouldn't be necessary, at least for now, while they are accepting the 4-month rental agreements. You can't register a 4-month rental agreement because it's just too short. And the landlord can say, no, it's a short-term rental agreement. Why should I register it?
Okay.
But obviously, registered is better, obviously. And that's, again, why we always advise the 1-year rental agreement.
Okay, excellent. Good. And incidentally, of course, EI has the sister company, Casa Portuguesa, who can help with finding tenancies as well. Anything else to say on the accommodation side when it comes to this new visa?
Not on the accommodation side. I'd say that, okay, yes, I understand the reluctancy of people trying to get a 1-year rental agreement. We understand that it is pretty much ludicrous to try and find a rental agreement in Portugal for 1 year remotely, although obviously we assist with that, but you don't even know if you are going to get the visa. So we understand that first, it's a huge investment. Second, it's a risk. But if you want to be on the safe side, that would be it. But you can still use the 4-month rental agreement and just use that. Probably we were just discussing that recently. Maybe something like Fladio, they do short-term rentals that are cancelable, and they do issue a sort of a rental agreement contract that could be definitely usable for this type of application. But again, we have heard some consulates inform clients that, okay, you can present that and we are going to accept your application with that. But we don't know if on the back office, if you are going to be approved with this or not, and we are not going to take responsibility. So if the consulate is saying that, it means they also don't really know if, okay, yes, it says that, but we don't know if it's going to be approved.
Yes. Okay, so you're recommending safety in that department. So there we go. We've got the income threshold that's required. We've got the accommodation. What else do people need to be aware of?
Oh, that the income, although the law states that it needs to be on average for the past 3 months, you have earned 3,040 euros. We have seen some results that tend to let us know that it needs to be stable and regular. Okay, so although the law mentions average, the SCF ultimately wants to see that it is stable and that you every month are getting that amount of money.
And how are people generally proving that? Are they showing that through their bank statements as well as a contract, either or should there be both?
Well, it can be a combination. It always depends on the situation of the person applying. For instance, if it is an employee of a company, you can just ask your HR department to write you a letter stating that, well, your name, position, monthly salary, and that you can work remotely from anywhere in the world, specifically Portugal. And then just add the last 3 pay stubs. That will do. Or the problem comes when you have your own company or are a freelancer. If you have your own company, sometimes you simply invoice clients and don't have anything else besides the invoices. Then we normally recommend, okay, just ask your accountant or someone that you are working with for your business to just write a letter stating how much money have you been making and you have been withdrawing for the past 3 months. And that normally works. Now, if you are a freelancer, that can also be tricky because sometimes people don't even work with an accountant. So how are you going to prove that? Well, you can also prove that with service agreements between your clients, even if you don't have one, but you have long-standing clients, just get a service agreement with those clients to back it up. And then you add the invoices to those clients.
Yeah. Okay. So what we're talking about, if you put yourself in a position of the consulate or CEF or VFS, who may well be processing this as well, right? It's got to look to them like this income is rock solid and stable and dependable. That's basically the gist of this, isn't it?
Exactly. And it's not enough to just show a bank statement with money coming in. You'll need to prove where the funds are coming from.
Yes.
In the first instance. It's not just, oh, but my bank statement is showing this amount of money. It should be enough. It's not. They want to see and know where it's coming from and where it is going to be deposited. And that account is either in your company's name or your name.
Very good. Okay, we'll come back to some more of the requirements. Let's say hello to Joshua in Portland, Oregon as well. Jim's in Porto. Hello from Indiana as well. UAE, Kason is in UAE, and we have got some questions coming in, which are great, but we'll stick to the general principles and the requirements, and then we'll go to some of these questions, which are really good from a universal point of view, and I think they will be of general use to people. And then, of course, when the recording's over, we can go into people's specific details in a more intimate and private setting. Anything else? And we talked about income, we talked about accommodation. What else will be required in that moment at the consulate, at the VFS, at the CEF?
Well, one of the new introductions of requirements for this type of visa is the document attesting fiscal residence. Okay, so where are you paying your taxes? Portugal wants to know where you are paying your taxes. Well, this is very good and dandy if you live in a country where you are paying taxes and if you are obligated to pay those taxes. But there are several countries around the world where there is no obligation of paying taxes over your income. Okay, so what are those people going to get? Well,
on Tuesday evening, we had people who were working away from home. I think Sri Lanka came up as one such country. What do you do then in this circumstance?
Well, what we are now trying to recommend to people is, okay, try to see which entity in that country would be able to write a letter stating that, yes, there is no obligation to pay taxes, and therefore, yes, you live here, but are not requested to pay taxes in this country, and then get a tax statement from the country of origin, if that is the case, stating that you are simply not a tax resident there, to back it up. We also have advised people to just get a letter from an attorney locally stating that, yes, the law here doesn't require tax payment. So
that's a good workaround.
Yeah, hopefully it will be a good workaround. We don't know if eventually this is just a way that Portugal found to maybe prevent people from tax havens to come to Portugal. Yeah, I don't want to be that negative, but maybe it was just a way, because in the EU currently we have such laws restricting money laundering and trying to navigate all of that and trying to reduce it to the maximum, that maybe this is all connected. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Or maybe Portugal just wants to know if you are good taxpayers and if you are coming to Portugal just to avoid tax and will not be paying taxes here, nor your country. We don't know.
And it's also possible that they just haven't thought it through for every use case, because this is what happens, isn't it? The law is set here, and then people find out what they're up against, sometimes in their country of origin, with a certain piece of paperwork that is not as easy to find as it might have looked when they were first considering the situation here in Portugal. So it could be any of the above there.
Yeah.
At this stage, Carolina, did you want to add anything?
No, agreeing with everything that Christina is saying.
Doing a great job, as always. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Carolina. So any other generalities that we can share at this point before we go into some specific questions, Christina?
Well, generalities.
Requirements, yeah.
Requirements. Well, aside from just proving that for the past 3 months you have been earning an income above 3,040 euros consistently, and that, well, you have a tax domicile somewhere, everything else is pretty much just standard. You'll need the visa form, you'll need the travel insurance. Obviously now the lodging requirement can be a little bit different, but
what about NIF numbers, bank accounts, and health insurance? Because that's what we've been coming up against with the D7. That's what we used to talking about with the D7. How is it for the digital nomad visa?
Well, currently, there is absolutely no requirement to obtain your NIF or a bank account in Portugal. Why? Because with the introduction of these new types of visa, our government has stated that as soon as you are granted with a visa, supposedly, you are going to be issued with your NIF, your social security number, and your number of enrollment in our national health system. Now, the thing is, and because this is all still brand new, we haven't taken anyone to the SEF yet. Because normally with a residency permit, you need to show that you already have a bank account in Portugal, you have your NIF. So we don't know how this is going to pan out when it's time for the residency permit. Mm-hmm. Are we just going to take our clients in and say, hey, here's the visa, here are the documents, please issue the residency permit? And are they not going to raise a problem with anything because it is supposed for them to just issue the residency permit card with all of that information already? And then a person would be obtaining a bank account?
We'll find out.
It's one of those things that we think, okay, they didn't thought this through.
Yes.
So maybe eventually in the future, you will need to obtain the NIF and the bank account first. Hopefully not, because, well, we have been having some problems with opening up bank accounts for people that are still working, again, because of bank compliance. Yeah. Banks, again, restricting to whom they are opening up the bank accounts, and they often tend to be more willing to open bank accounts for people with passive income rather than work income.
Interesting. And people truly are at the tip of this arrow, aren't they, who are currently going through this process and will be not exactly guinea pigs, but they will be part of the making of history, if you like. That's a better way of putting it, isn't it?
Definitely.
And the creation of this new kind of visa class. Okay. Health insurance. That's the other thing that we're used to talking about when it comes to visas. What's required in the health insurance department? For
the health insurance, we are recommending pretty much transversally to any type of visa, a 1-year travel insurance.
Okay. All right. And that can be organized through our partners, Winsurance, of course, as well.
Definitely. Nuno has been excellent in helping all of our clients get their travel insurance, and quite cheap, apparently.
Yes. Well, certainly compared to what a lot of people are used to paying in the United States, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And you can find him in the business directory, Expats Portugal's business directory. And Jerry may well put the link directly to Winsurance in the comments as well for us. Jerry, did you want to add something there?
Yes, I think Nuno's here, Carl.
Oh, excellent. I'm so
there he is.
There he is. Nuno. So if
jump up and down, please, Nuno.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Nuno, on this matter? The recommendation is for 12 months of travel insurance, and in recent times that has been introduced by you, and you've got some satisfied and happy customers.
Why introduce myself when Christina
yeah, it's true,
already did it, and I'm blushing.
That is a glowing review, sir. You are literally glowing.
Her words. So thank you so much, Christina. I'm glad that your clients appreciate our service. everything that I can say.
Well, you made him blush, Christina. That's normally my job to go red here. Okay, well, Nunu's here, as you can see, and if you want to PM him, feel free to do that. Let's go to some of these specific questions now that are really great. Thank you, everybody, for putting these into the chat. First, off the blocks, I think was Leanne, and somebody's got to leave now. Interestingly, you're not able to stay for the rest of the webinar. This will be recorded and will be available on the YouTube channel of Expats Portugal. Okay, the first question was actually from Joshua, beg your pardon. I applied for a D7 on the 7th of December last year before I knew about the Nomad visa. I have a full-time job and filed that as my income source. Did I apply for the wrong visa? What are my chances of getting the D7? Great question. And of course, people will have found themselves in this situation. They'll have filed their application and then suddenly this new visa comes out. What would you say to Joshua about that situation?
Well, Joshua, is your work income above 3,000 euros, 3,040 euros? Because if it is, don't worry, they will probably just issue you with a digital nomad visa instead of a D7.
Oh,
If
okay.
not, you will probably get a letter of denial. Depending on, okay, you say here that you have a full-time job. So yeah, hopefully your salary is above the requirement. And if it is, I do hope that they will just simply issue you with a digital nomad visa.
And that's what you think will happen, is it will be reconfigured at the government end, and people who are applying for the visas won't have to reapply or make a change themselves. Okay,
yeah, hopefully that will be the case. Yeah.
All right, and work in progress, as we're saying tonight. This is all new, and it's, you know, the examples are being found and sort of hammered out as we speak, really, between the government and the applicants and their agencies around the world. Steve, thank you for this question. Nomad visa, what documents do they want to see? I think we've covered that. And how far back in time do they look and compare this to the D7? We've done that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Christina.
No, it's just 3 months back, everything.
Okay.
Bank statements and the pay stubs.
All right, Steve, if that satisfies your question, great. If not, do ask more questions in the chat. Leanne, let's get to you now. I'm going to be applying in Washington, D.C. Any news on the accommodation requirement for the digital nomad visa there? And this is where it's great to talk to you guys at EI, because you've got the day-to-day working relationships with the consulates and CEFs all around the world. Sorry, the VFSs all around the world. With Washington, Leanne says, I'd heard London was taking 4 months Airbnb proof as well, rather than needing a 12-month lease agreement. Now, whilst that's the case, I suspect you were talking about the worst case scenario and playing for safety, weren't you? So what do you say to Leanne's question there, Washington, DC and the Airbnb thing?
I would say that in Washington, D.C., it can probably go either way, because the case that I heard of, well, I think it was in San Francisco, right, Carolina?
No, London.
London? Really? Interesting.
Yes.
So you see, it always can depend on the clerk.
Yes, this is a difficulty, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why if you don't want to take that chance of one clerk saying yes to an Airbnb and another clerk saying no to the Airbnb, just get a 4-month rental agreement or a 12-month rental agreement.
Yeah. Now let's sort of focus on that a bit and drill down, because what we're talking about here is there is the law, and then there is the interpretation. And we do find ourselves in this situation sometimes, don't we? When you've got the interpretation of the particular bureaucrat or administrator and what they think about things. And this can vary, can't it, from consulate to consulate and office to office?
Yeah, definitely. And it can depend not only on the office, but the clerk.
Right, okay.
Yeah, if the clerk is having a good day or not. Sometimes it makes a difference.
And this is, of course, why it's good to work with a company like yourselves, because I think occasionally they get a call from Christina, don't they, saying, actually, the law is this. And you're there to remind them in a way, in no uncertain terms, in a way that an applicant without that sort of knowledge would be able to do. Is that correct?
It is correct. It's not me technically calling them, but
Right.
it is our amazing legal team. When it comes to that time, like, okay, you're having problems, we get our attorneys working on that, and they just clear it out. Well, sometimes it's a huge fight, sometimes it's just a small fight, but what matters is that 99% of the time we get the job done and they get good results.
Yeah, great. Okay, good to know. And that's why it's worth working with the professionals here, who, of course, you can also find in the Expats Portugal business directory. And as a premium member, you'll get a discount on their services. Maxine, I think we're going to come to yours after the recording because that one's a bit personal and we'll work through that. Stick around for that. Nikki, assume I apply for and receive a digital nomad visa and purchase a rental property in Portugal as well for extra income. Interesting. If I happen to lose my job and therefore lose my residency through the digital nomad visa, will I be able to use the passive income from my Portugal-based rental property to then move over to a D7? It doesn't really work like that, does it? People don't switch visas once they've come here, do they, Christina?
Normally, well, it depends on the type of visa that you get. For instance, if you get a D1 visa, a work permit visa, if you lose your job, then you lose your work permit. But for instance, with the D7 visa, which is a visa that it is just mainly for residency, you can do whatever you want. You can work remotely. You can just enjoy your pension. You can get a job in Portugal. You can open up your own company. And I do believe that with a digital nomad visa, the same rule does apply. So you begin with a digital nomad visa because you have remote work, and pretty much provided that you still can provide income and get some income, you don't need to mandatorily switch to a different type of visa.
Okay, because this can happen, of course. I mean, you alluded to it before, didn't you? People's contracts change, people get different jobs. How much of that do you have to volunteer to the authorities when those sort of circumstances happen?
Well, technically, you shouldn't need to do any communication regarding your income and if you have any change of income with this types of visas. But you do have a question when it comes for the time of the renewal of the residency permit, where you need to probably, if you are not one of the lucky ones to be able to do it online and don't even need to go in for an SEF appointment, you will need to go in and show your paperwork all over again. And if you are in this situation where you lost your job, but you have this new type of income, just update your information on the system and switch your residency permit type to the same as one of a D7 type. Okay,
so the point here being, what they're not interested in what you're doing first and foremost, they're interested in you and having enough money, then we'll make the necessary adjustment. Okay,
exactly. If you are able to sustain yourself.
Good. Carolina, I think you wanted to add something.
No, I was laughing because it is true. As long as you have the minimum amount, you're safe.
Yes. Okay. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Of course, as well. Good. Okay. Thank you for that input there. And great question, Nikki, as well. Thank you for that. Kaysen is here. This is a great question. The amount needed for dependents, kids and spouses. We talked about the principal applicant. What's needed for the family, Christina?
Carolina, help me out. I think it's the same with the D7 visa. I think it's just based off of the minimum wage, right?
Yes, it is like an amount of percentage, if it is an adult or minors, or depending on the main applicant's
okay, so your spouse
income.
has to have the minimum wage and then a percentage for children, is that right?
Yes, on the top of my mind, I think it is like 30%.
For the kids?
Yes, each one.
Okay. Kaysen, thank you for that question. I'm not surprised there are different quotes around the internet. That's the nature of this beast at the moment, I think. But to get that sorted out and to be specific about that, put a call into EI. Good evening to you, Suzanne. I think we need to mic you up, or maybe you could do that, Suzanne. Because if you're talking privately, that's going to come out on our webinar right now. So Suzanne, if you could mute up for us, that'd be fantastic. And yes, there's another question about the Airbnb. I think we've covered that. Thank you, Mehmet, for being here tonight. Who's very excited about the digital nomad visa, as we know. Question 1 of 2 from Tarquin. My dependent daughter is an EU citizen, but I am not. Oh yes, because you're in the UK there. If she moved to Portugal and settled there, would I be eligible to rejoin her through the family rejoining visa? So are you talking about that, Tarquin, as an alternative to the digital nomad visa? And let's ask your second question as well, because it might be connected up by Christina and Carolina here. The non-nomad D7 visa is for passive income. Does this mean that I can use income from a company I own and am a director of to get this? Can you make some sense of that for us, Christina?
Definitely. If you are the director of a company and if you are getting dividends from that company, that is passive income, and you can use it to apply for a D7 visa. Okay. As for your dependent daughter, well, there are a lot of factors regarding that whole scenario. So we would need to discuss that a little bit further on to see if that would be a possibility for you.
Okay, that's great, Tarquin. I think a call to the company is going to be good there. Call to the office. Joshua, another one from you. Can you talk about the 1 versus 2 year nomad visa? So what's going on here with 1 year or 2 years, and the airline ticket requirement? What's this about airline tickets needing to be shown?
Well, the thing is, the 1 year digital nomad is not a residency visa. So you will not get a 2 year residency permit in Portugal. You just get the perk of coming and going from Portugal for a full year. If you want to live here, you will still need to apply for a digital nomad visa outside of Portugal.
Okay, there you go. That's swiftly dealt with. Thank you, Christina. Leanne, I'm confused, you say, about the tax resident. If we will be paying tax in Portugal, isn't that my tax residency? Well, it will be, but they want to know about the one you're coming from. That's the distinction here, isn't it?
Correct. That is exactly the case.
All right. And I think, Sid, for you, so what information would they want to prove we're paying taxes? What document? I think we covered that, didn't we? Even down to somebody, an upstanding citizen, like a lawyer, saying, we don't actually do that in this country, if you're lucky enough to come from a country like that. How many visas has EI successfully gotten approved for the new digital nomad visa at this stage? Where are you? There's a few in the process, in the pipeline, right?
Yeah, there are a few in the processes. I think we have at least 3 approved. Carolina, do you have any idea of how many have been approved
Champagne,
already?
I think the champagne is already chilling though, isn't it?
Yeah. No, from the moment that we got our first approval, it was like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's just a matter of figuring out the nuances and see, okay, is that Airbnb, after all, going to be accepted in the end? Is that 4-month rental agreement going to have absolutely no problems? And now it's just the little twerks between what's going to be accepted in one consulate and not the other.
Okay, so there you go, Leanne. There are people in the pipeline, and we're just working on the nuances now. Kaysen adds, I have a digital nomad visa appointment next week in Dubai. Congratulations. I opened a bank account in Portugal and transferred money to the Portuguese bank account. Is that really a problem, showing a Portugal NIF and Portugal bank account? It's not going to be a problem to have those, is it?
No, not at all. And you should show that you already have a bank account in Portugal and the NIF, because after all, if our government in the end is going to issue you with the NIF, you don't want to have 2 NIFs. That's just a headache that you don't want.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of that. What happens then if you find yourself with 2 NIF numbers?
Ooh, man.
Not happy about that. Oh, okay. It happens, does it?
It has happened. You
have to pay tax twice. No.
People forget about it. No, and then it depends on the countries, because there are some countries that tend to put your last name in front of your first name in your passports. People who are from those countries will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So that creates a conflict. And when it goes to the tax office, if they are going to look for the name, they won't find that name. It doesn't exist because the last name is in front of the first name.
Okay.
And then you have 2 NIFs, and then you buy a house, and then you register it to an NIF. But then that NIF is also, you have the other NIF registered to something else.
Yes.
Headache.
Sounds like a Stephen King novel. Who I understand has just moved or bought a home in Portugal. I can tell you that.
He did?
On the grapevine. Yes, I can.
Oh my God, I need to chase him then.
I think it's him and his characters who do the chasing, Christina. Okay, that's great. But I'm confused now, because I think earlier on you were saying there isn't a requirement to get a bank account on NIF.
There isn't, no.
But you are doing yourself a favor if you go ahead and do that, but make sure you don't get in the condition of having 2 NIF numbers. Is that the bottom line?
Exactly. So definitely show on the visa application that you already have that NIF. A lot of people that were planning on applying for the D7 visa went along and just got that NIF and that bank account, and probably were just waiting for the right time and the right moment to apply. And then wham, new law, new requirements. And now maybe they are in a position that they can't not even apply for a D7 or the digital nomad. But
Yeah.
those that can still apply for the digital nomad, please do show that you already have an NIF and a bank account.
Okay, good. So you don't get into that condition of having the two, because that would be quite a bureaucratic nightmare by the sound of it. Okay, Marcy and Jason, thank you for this. A few weeks ago, Gilda mentioned that the DC consulate, Gilda, of course, a principal at EI, that the DC consulate was shifting to in-person only, no mail-in applications. Can you confirm that that is the case?
I do confirm that is the case. A lot of people were sad and, well, mad about the decision, but it is a repercussion of the many people that were moving from other places that belong to other jurisdictions to avoid going in person, and then just overwhelmed the Washington, D.C. VFS with a lot of applications. And they just said, okay, let's stop this. Let's make people come in.
Okay, so it's a kind of evolution of the ecosystem there that caused that.
Yeah.
Okay, sadly, that's not good news for some people, but that is the case, Marcy and Jason. Sarah and Andy, hi, I meet the minimum earning requirements for the digital nomad visa. However, my partner doesn't. What options do we have which will allow her to work remotely? That could be a partner reunification, couldn't it, ultimately?
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is now also a new type of visa, which is the residency visa. To escort someone requesting a residency visa, which is the most boring name of a visa. I always say this when speaking about this. Let's call it escort visa, okay? Which also doesn't sound that good.
It doesn't sound right. No, I think we need to get back to the drawing board on that.
But it's not a family reunification visa either. So it's like, okay, you'll help me find a good term for coming over with.
Companion visa.
Over with visa.
The companion visa. Let's go with that.
Companion visa, good. Okay, I like that. Companion visa. So pretty much now that figure appears to be, well, in the past we were doing a main applicant, and we would do a visa application that would piggyback on that main applicant.
Mm-hmm.
This is now pretty much the same, but it has its own name and its own legal structure. It will be based off of the main applicant's visa application, but we do advise people to apply simultaneously. Technically, in the law, it states that you should be able to only apply after someone has gotten their residency visa, and that it should be issued within 10 days. We don't know yet if all consulates agree that this is the way it is operable. We have seen some consulates say, no, you cannot apply for this now. You should have applied when you applied. But we also have some consulates saying, no, you now need to wait for your visa to be approved in order to apply. So to be on the safe side, always request 2 visa applications and piggyback one on the other for spouses and children.
All right, we're going to go to the last of the questions in this section on the recording, and then we'll go to your more personal questions. So that's a moment, everybody. If you're not clear about anything, you'll get another chance to ask questions, so don't worry about that. And I think that might include you, Sid, because we have dealt with that question, but if we haven't, talk to us in a few minutes' time after the recording. Jim had the Clark problem in DC last year, not a reflection on DC as much as a VFS. So yes, people having bad days, you need the backup of EI, which I think you may have had there, Jim. The other, before we move on from the companion element that we can now call it, when they talk about partner there, what might people come up against in terms of showing that they are in a partnership? Because that's going to be crucial, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because most people are in long-standing relationships of decades, but have not one piece of paper that can put them together.
It can happen, can't
So it can happen, yeah. So I would say whenever possible, just do your taxes together. Even if you are married, it's simple. You just show your marriage certificate and just add that on the application. But if you are not married and don't have a legal domestic partnership registered, then you should at least show either tax returns showing that you live at the same address, bills that can put you in the same address at multiple times in the past 2 years. It doesn't matter that you can show pictures of holidays that you spend together. No,
Right.
hard, concrete documents. Okay.
Okay, so that's what you're going to be up against, just so you know, before you set about that particular part of the process with not the escort visa. We are not calling it that. Okay.
Companion visa.
The companion visa, we're going to call it. Okay, we will talk about income tax and also a couple of quickies then before we conclude this part of the webinar and the recorded part. This is good thinking, Leanne. Which locations in the US can you still apply online? I see what she's doing there.
I see what she's doing there.
Yes.
Technically, New York.
Okay.
My advice, don't do it.
Okay, why?
VFS in New York, working through mail, not the best experience on our end.
Okay, you might want to ask a little bit more, Leanne, after we've concluded this part on that. But thank you for that answer there. I mean, it was a good line of inquiry, Leanne, but it may not work out as Christina was saying there. And is an online bank okay? I have my IBAN on N26, and of course, these digital banks will give you an IBAN number. Will that work? Will that be satisfactory?
Well, yes, for a digital nomad visa, you can just definitely show an N26 bank, because technically you don't need to show that you have a bank account in Portugal. So,
all right, last one for this section. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Carolina, for what you've done so far. Steve is asking, how will fluctuations in exchange rates, US dollars to euro, affect the 3-month income documentation? Is the income calculated by the exchange rate when we were paid, or the rate on the day of application? Great question.
great question. The rate on the day of application.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. All right. So you want a bit of a margin in there, don't you? And you're subject to the vagaries of the changing exchange rate. And of course, for currency conversions, use Spartan, who you'll also find in the Expats Portugal business directory. Excellent work so far, Christina. We worked you hard in this first segment. So thank you, everybody. And make sure you are subscribed to the Expats Portugal YouTube channel to make sure you are getting all the best information from Expats Portugal. We will conclude the recording there for the time being. Thank you so much so far.